Truth. I'd assumed for much of my life that things were either true or false, that there was a binary. You couldn't be half true, half untrue. And so I was told constantly as a child, tell the truth. And then I heard that in law they'd hedged this round and talked about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so that you had a clear, unambiguous truth. And I went on in this belief for some years. It was perhaps partly when I became an anthropologist, read books on anthropology and taught anthropology, that I discovered that this was a very rare, unusual idea, that there was the truth. That in most societies, even the word for truth was scattered. There were several different words for truth, because it was recognized in these societies that you could tell the social truth, that is, something that conforms with social etiquette and relationships, but that was different from the observed or factual truth, and there was the ethical truth, and so on and so on. So truth was not clear-cut. And then later I discovered when I worked in Japan and China and in the East and in Taoist, Buddhist, Confucian, Yin-Yang societies, that it was even more complicated, that things were both true and false at the same time, that, or not false, but the truth was on a continuum, and you could have things that were 3/4 true or 1/4 true or half true, and you didn't have to have this absolute division between truth and falsity. Now, this growing realization of the relativity of truth has been reinforced hugely by recent developments. One of them, obviously, is social media, because now truth is fragmented. At one time, there were authority figures, the government or the clergy or the academics or someone who said this, or the scientist who said this is the truth, and you sort of half accepted, 3/4 accepted it. Now anyone can just set up an Instagram account or a Twitter account or put up films on YouTube and put up their version of the truth, which can persuade other people. So before, truth was confined, but now anyone can say, I think the moon is made of cheese, or I think that all people who are albinos should be sent to a concentration camp, or whatever rubbish you want to say. And who is going to object? I mean, they get their followers. And so there are multiple versions of truth. Now, this idea of multiple versions of truth has been known, as I say, for most of history to many societies. And one really good and interesting example or playing out of this idea is in the great Japanese filmmaker Kurosawa's film made just after the Second World War called Rashomon, in which the film replays a murder and possibly a rape 4 or 5 times, seen by different people who were present at the time. The victim, the supposed criminal, even a ghost. And they all see different things. And this also came home to me talking to my wife, who is a magistrate, a judge, and she was reporting a very big crime in Cambridgeshire, and she said it was extraordinary that different witnesses to the same events of a post office raid described the events entirely differently. Some of them said, well, the man and his accomplice were tall and with blonde hair. Others said they were small with dark hair, some said they were driving this. In other words, we don't see the world straight on. We see it through mirrors and through contexts, and therefore we all see different things. This relativity and confusion was increased, obviously, by developments in philosophy and science. Quantum theory, particularly, believes, in the famous illustration by Schrödinger, that a cat can be both alive and dead at the same time, that atoms can go in different directions and both be going this way and that way. So you get into a highly relativistic world with the possibility that things are true and at the same untrue. Now, many people find this very unsettling, and I think I would have found it unsettling being brought up in this world, though, as I say, in Nepal or Japan, people seem to get along perfectly well without having to be so absolutely certain. Now, the idea of a fixed and firm truth is extremely useful. Some people have suggested that the origins of the scientific revolution, which occurred originally in the West, were tied up with this, without an idea that there are true things, absolute truths out there, laws of nature. Without that idea, how can you have science? If everything is variable, if you can do an experiment one day and it shows one thing, and then a few days later it shows something else, then the idea of universal laws are lost. But even in that area, there has been increasing doubt, because in the social sciences and the history of philosophy and science, people have talked about paradigms, which are worldviews, and pointed out that even science changes. It believes in a set of truths, and then new science comes along and it shows that they were wrong and that there are new truths. And so there's no fixity at all. So in this chaos and mutual contesting of truth, what can we do? So my view is that we try to find out as closely as we can the truth, if it's important in law or our thinking, but don't get too concerned if it's not absolutely true. It's like seeking any kind of perfection. The best is the enemy of the good. Try and be as truthful as you can. Try and find out what the truths are. But in the end, I tend to come back to one of my favourite quotations from the poet John Keats, where he was wrestling with this problem. He came out, and I sometimes get it the wrong way around, but roughly he said, truth is beauty, beauty, truth. So aesthetics and ethics and morality and philosophy all mingle together. If a thing is truly beautiful, it is only true, it is also true. And this gets over another problem, which is that many things you can't apply the truth criteria to. You can't say, is the Mona Lisa true? Is Bach or Handel, their music, true or false? Much of life is not like that. So there are many realms where it can be beautiful, and in that case you could also argue that it is true. It is true to some inner aesthetic laws which we don't fully understand. So one shouldn't be too worried about this matter, and perhaps take the view at Jesus' trial, where Pontius Pilate was asked whether he thought Jesus was speaking the truth, and he said, "And what is truth?" and then didn't wait for an answer. Perhaps it's a foolish question, but it's one that obviously interests all of us. Thank you.